Hi, everybody. Welcome. I hope everybody had a fantastic holiday. Happy to be here in January 2026. I'm here with Tim Rotak. He is the Director of Product Line Marketing at Couchbase. And today we're going to talk about AI's biggest challenges: safety, speed, scale, and cost control. We did kick off our AI services in December. And we'll continue to make improvements, as the world changes around us, so that we can make, enterprises smarter and faster, more scalable. Today, just wanted to draw your attention to your right side. Please chat with us. We'd love to know where you're coming from. Take any questions that you might have in the Q&A section. And then take a look at our docs. We do have a copy of today's presentation in there that you can take a look at later. We also have a couple of our web resources, so AI services, you can learn more. There's also a demo in there and a little more about Couchbase Capella. So with that, I will kick it off to Tim. Hey, Tim, thanks for being here.
Great. Thanks, Suzanne. Thank you for the intro, and thank you to everyone for joining. Today's topic for the webinar, we're really going to be talking about AI challenges, Gen AI, for organizations that we're hearing about, that we're talking to customers about, that I'm sure you're all familiar with. The safety factors of Gen AI. How do we do this at scale and still have it fast? And how do we manage costs, right? That obviously with the cost of LLMs, and another very big conversation. So we'll dig into what is Couchbase doing for Gen AI, and what's our part of that solution with our customers. So before we jump in with a high level, what are those opportunities for organizations in terms of Gen AI? Obviously, there's a lot of them. We all are, I'm sure, pretty well versed in experimenting and using Gen AI at home, or for personal work, and maybe within your organization to some degree. Enterprises adoption is an area where things are taking a little bit longer for a variety of risk reasons and cost reasons, so on. So we'll talk about that. But those opportunities exist nonetheless. And so things like improving the personalization of the experience with end users, right? How can both people who are engaging with customers, or their digital applications or customer support, deliver better responses, know more about their customers much more faster and easier to make those consumer and customer experiences better, right? How do we streamline the operations of our organization? How can we spot anomalies more quickly? How can we adapt to them? How can agents help maybe take those first steps in trying to identify and make some changes and correct things? And developer productivity. So this is an area that obviously was, I think, one of the first big use cases that we're seeing with co-pilots and developing code and so forth. But it's not just that. I want to talk to you a little bit about not just writing code, but how could we use AI to better work with our data, do a lot more with our data, leveraging LLMs in a more streamlined, easy, and safe fashion. We'll talk about that later on. And then there's the costs. How can organizations reduce the kind of repetitive tasks, the lower value task, automating things like document ingestion, or just kind of those things that may be taking a lot of time, that allow people to do higher level work, right? So all of these opportunities exist, and this is what, as we speak to customers, organizations are driving for. But Gen AI is a huge shift in how we think about and need to build applications, right? And so if we think about the old paradigm, and this old paradigm is, and people are still obviously building applications this way, but just the way we've been building applications, let's say for the past few decades, is you have your application layer, your middle layer, and your data structure layer, right? And the flow of data and the flow of way things work are very structured. You think of a website, you have menus and submenus, and everything's very orthogonal into how we do things, right? But structured, clean. And in the new world of Gen AI, as we think about agents and the possibilities there, right? The way that we're going to be structuring how applications or agents or multi-agentic applications work there's a lot more variability, right? So, and in addition to the variability, there's also a third component, right? So before it was the data and your application layer, and now you've got your agents, your data layer, and your model component, right? So a lot more movement of data, a lot more complexity, but the variability of not just I'm choosing a menu on a web page and picking drop-down lists and tick boxes and so on, clicking links. Now we're dealing with language, and those questions could be almost anything, right? So there's that variability. More organizations are trying to bring in unstructured data. There's all this untapped information that's very powerful in an organization that's been hard to bring into systems. Gen AI is designed to help make that a lot smoother. And then the AI models themselves, right? There's so much going on unknown that we need to be able to put guardrails around these things and control what those responses are. Now, JSON then in all these interactions becomes the natural format because of the variability and the complexity of these things. But the challenges here have meant that to date, right, again, within large enterprises and within large applications, as we speak to industry analysts like Gartner and Forrester, is that most of the POCs haven't made it to production and haven't made it in scale. So we need to do some rethinking. So let's dig in to a little bit more on some of the complexity around AI agents and so forth. So what we see here is a scenario where you have a multi-agent system. Typically, you think of something like the main component, the main agent that's going to be interacting with the end user or other agent, and they're going to be divvying up subtasks to other agents as they look for information or need work done. And they're going to be getting information, and that information could be kind of traditional transactional data, semantic data, your information about the users, right? Other information that's needed to run these systems, memory, tracing what those agents are doing, caching to make sure that these things are fast. All of those components add up and part of the data layer. And then bringing in that data from external sources, whether that be within your own cloud or your other systems or so forth, is part of the process. And all of that data, that context needs to interact with the AI models to provide final results. And each of those has its own challenges, right? Whether the ingestion of these unstructured documents, which is a complex process, managing this context that is fed into the AI model has its own challenges, and with a lot of the different data, security and privacy always a consideration. And as you mentioned, with the AI agents, there's a lot more than just one call back and forth with the database. There's a lot of round trips happening, right? And with those multiple passes, we need to make sure that the inference process coming from the AI models is fast, because otherwise you get that latency stacking, which makes these systems even more slow than just a traditional, single call. And then over time, you want to monitor these agents so you can debug them in case an issue arises, right? You want versions and so forth. So you have insight into that data. So along with those challenges, there's also another factor is deployment flexibility. This is true typically of most systems, but today most of the AI agent and a lot of models are limited to more cloud environments. A lot of the tools are cloud only. No hybrid deployments, no edge solutions, which is where the users are, right? And that lack of flexibility can hinder some use cases. So we're going to talk about that. And then the other big factor, just kind of the last one to focus on, is security and cost, right? I did mention this a little bit earlier, but as we're seeing, I think one of the biggest factors in terms of the lack of adoption of AI at the enterprise for the mission critical use cases is trustworthiness of the system. We need to make sure that the systems are not hallucinating, that the data that we're providing in terms of context is not escaping out outside of our environment and so forth. And likewise, those agents, as we develop them, over time, we're keeping an eye on them. We're watching what results are being delivered, and we need to be able to govern them over time. And then the inference is expensive. So making sure that we're delivering predictable results, predictable workloads with the right infrastructure and controls in place to make sure we're building trusted systems. Okay, so now let's go down to, Couchbase's view and how Couchbase helps organizations to build, fast, scalable, and secure AI solutions and AI agents. So there's four components that I'm going to be talking about today. Our core database platform, which provides for a variety of use cases. We're going to talk about vector search, which is a key component as part of the retrieval augmented generation, or RAG workflow, where we're taking our corporate data, we're using that as context to provide the LLM to ensure we're getting much better answers, more timely answers to the end user. We'll talk about our AI services. That's something that Suzanne mentioned at the beginning, and how that's driving speed and security and making lives easier for development teams. And then we'll talk a little bit about the deployment flexibility. But first, let's talk about our database platform. So Couchbase as a database platform has been around for over a decade. If you know Couchbase a bit, you've probably heard that we began over a decade ago as the merger between a flexible document database, distributed technology, and a caching technology. And the merger of those two components is core to the architecture, means the platform delivers not only the flexibility of NoSQL with distributed data and reliability and failover and things like that, but also in-memory processing and speed at scale to allow customers to build those critical applications. And that's for a variety of applications and AI agents and so forth. So you can see here just a little mention of kind of some core AI-related type of applications, as well as kind of some of our more traditional applications like product catalog, customer 360, mobile field apps, and so forth, caching and session management. And those are directly linked to what we like to call like the four pillars of our data management within the unified platform. So the first is our operational data store, data component, where we're storing documents, user profiles, product catalogs, and so on, very common, and providing key value access with in-memory caching, so it's extremely fast, right? So that's the focus there. The mobile and edge component of the platform is designed to help customers build IoT applications and field service applications where we have an embeddable offering that can go into a remote device, an application, and critically, the hard part, manage the synchronization of that data at scale. This is used by we've got a lot of field service, telcos and retailers, where you've got tens of thousands of workers. The airlines, the cruise industry uses our mobile offering quite extensively. Operational analytics. So we take that data from the operational store and want to do real-time analysis. So this is not about data warehousing and bringing everything together, but more about, how can I take that data, do my analytics faster, and change and look at my data and drive that to results. An example is Domino's using us both as an operational layer, but then running omni-channel marketing campaigns by being able to take in that data, do the analysis, and they were able to go from weeks down to hours in terms of accelerating those campaigns. And then finally, what we'll be talking more about today, the AI services component, the vector search capabilities, doing that at scale, and the additional AI services functionalities that are built into the platform. All of those accessed through a common data interactivity layer with SQL as our query language, but also supporting natural language, supporting MCP, a data API, making it easy, with JSON throughout as the standard data format for all of this. Obviously, supplying enterprise security to meet the needs of our customers. And whether that's interacting with other data sources or AI models, AI tool platforms, the whole AI ecosystem, that's something that we're doing as well. Okay. So in terms of the platform, one area I wanted to focus on, I talked about our caching capabilities and in-memory platform, is providing that to customers at scale. So what you're seeing here is a benchmark that was done a couple years back by a third party using the YCSB benchmarks. It's the industry standard for NoSQL. And what we're looking here is the throughput, or operations per second, of Couchbase compared to other leading players in the market space, and doing that workload on different scenarios: 3-node, 6-node, 9-node, and 18-node. And as you can see, in terms of read-write, Couchbase Capella is outperforming our customers for this typical YCSB workload. Now, what you see here on the right is, well, how does that apply to us as an organization from a cost perspective? What does that mean? Well, what we did is some simple calculations where you can figure out what your throughput per second is, figure how many operations you can do in a month. Well, what are those costs per month? You do a couple calculations, you can say, well, what would it cost me to do 1 billion operations? Obviously, lower is best. And you can see here that Couchbase Capella is beating out the other market leaders in that scenario, right? So the key components involved are caching layer, our active memory design, a whole bunch of other things. But really, in the end result, outperforming competitors both in terms of speed and costs and running costs for using Couchbase Capella as a platform. I mentioned SQL before. So for a decade now, Couchbase has used SQL++, which is essentially SQL for JSON, as our common query language. So independent, you've got a variety of different clients that the customers are using with us, but whether you're doing querying or you're doing search, full text search, vector search, geo search, so forth, analytics, transactions, SQL is the language that we're using, which makes it easy for customers who come from, or teams that come from a more relational background. The most common query language on the planet still today. And so it's the one that we've been using, and customers love that as a factor when they come in to use Couchbase. And then obviously it's critical for us to have the data always be on, always be everywhere. We took a little bit of cross data center replication as part of the platform, where we're moving data between clusters. All of this is happening in memory for those applications that need to be performant, not across the globe or just across multiple regions. This is all technology that's built into the platform. And then the edge to mobile. I talked about mobile a little bit, but being able to take your data, AI data, vectors down to the device and make it accessible to people on the go. We'll talk more about that towards the end. So that was a high-level overview of the unified data platform and how we're helping for a wide variety of applications, but also AI and AI agents. But let's dig in a little bit more to the vector and AI capabilities. So vector search is really the capability for organizations to do similarity or semantic search on their data using the context of the digital object, right? And each of these different types of applications have their different priorities. And so for Couchbase, we offer 3 different types of vector index. And the reason is, as we've seen with customers, for their different use cases, it's not always a one-size-fits-all, right? It might depend on the search flexibility, the accuracy they need, the performance they need, and therefore we have different vector index options that will align to those priorities. So for example, our most flexible is designed, it's called the search vector index. And so we kind of picture this here as a utility truck where it can do a wide variety of things. It's not necessarily meant for the highest speed at the highest scale, but you can search a traditional text search, you can search traditional predicates, you can search vectors, you can search geo search, and do that all in one SQL query, all with one index. And that's really flexible for us. And we recently had one of the leading telcos in the United States choose us to roll out for their packet analysis application across the country to dig into that analysis to improve their search techniques using our hybrid search, and they'll be using these sort of vector search indexes. Composite indexes are more designed for when you have a large data set, but you want to filter it down a little bit before you complete the vector index. This is a very popular technique called pre-filtering. So we have indexes specifically for that. And then when you need all-out power just for massive data sets and massive scale, focus purely on vector, that's where our Hyperscale vector indexes come into play. So recommendation systems and RAG and agents and so forth. And let's jump into a little bit of data on specifically on that index. So one thing we did, this was about 2 months ago, I want to say, we had a benchmark conducted versus MongoDB. And so this was using that Hyperscale vector index. And so what you see here, we had a very large data set, 100 million records in terms of vectors with 768 dimensions. And what you can see on the left is the speed, or sort of the throughput, the number of queries per second. And then on the bottom, what you saw was this is the result accuracy. So depending on how accurate you wanted it to be, would be slower results. That's very common with vector indexing and vector search. And why might that be relevant to your use case? Well, there's sometimes where you need like legal documents, legal applications, medical applications. You really need that accuracy to be extremely high. There are others where, let's say, I want to do a search within my music application for songs similar to what I'm listening to. It doesn't need to be as perfect as, let's say, a medical recommendation. So the accuracy can be lower, but speed can matter, right? And so what you see here, Couchbase versus MongoDB, is that for the different levels of accuracy, we're outperforming MongoDB quite significantly at 100 million data set. But Hyperscale Vector Index was really designed to go much, much bigger than that. So we ran a similar benchmark with a billion point data set. And with this billion point data set, what you'll see here is that essentially Mongo couldn't perform. So the number of queries per second at these different levels of accuracy was 6, 5, 3, 2. Nowhere, it basically didn't work. And you can see the Couchbase is still performing quite well in terms of the throughput for these different accuracy recalls. And so we have a benchmark that's published, it's available on the website, which is a lot more information about this. But with our vector search, our goal and our vector indexing is to make sure that our customers have what they need so they can build vector search applications, hybrid search applications, AI agents with the speed, accuracy, throughput, and right cost price points for their particular needs. Okay, so that's vector search. Let's go a little bit deeper into AI and talk about our integrated AI services. So this is going to look similar to the diagram I had earlier, the little architecture where you have the multi-agent system at the top, communicating with the Couchbase data platform. And what I was talking about here before was those kind of 4 pillars of data storage and interactivity. But what we've added with our AI services integrated into the platform are 4 main kind of components that are used for developing, building, managing Gen AI and AI agent systems. The first of which is the model service. The model service is meant as a way for organizations to integrate with LLMs or to leverage through our partnership with NVIDIA models that would be hosted in the Couchbase environment to make it safer, to keep it within your VPC, also faster in terms of low latency and so on. We'll talk a little bit more about this later, but plugging into other platforms as well. So that's the model service. The next is the data processing service. So this is a service that allows, makes it easier for customers to quickly and easily bring in data, unstructured data, convert that into a structured format, have that vectorized, have that indexed for their RAG applications, and we could pull in vectors directly from S3, or we can leverage third-party platforms to do that conversion. And some of this we do with our own models. So all of this is really to streamline that process of bringing in unstructured data so that applications and agents can utilize that information and delivering better results. And so then AI agents, our agent catalog, sits alongside of those, and that's used for customers to build applications and have the information about those agents stored within Couchbase, and makes it easier to track and debug. And we'll talk about that in a second. And then finally, AI functions is how organizations can utilize some predefined capabilities in Couchbase to more easily interact with their data, right? Okay, so the model service. So this is the first component of the AI services that I was talking about, where customers will see within the Capella UI the integrations that they might have to different model components. And specifically, if they are choosing to use models from our partnership with NVIDIA, they can go in and use a variety of different models that NVIDIA provides with a whole bunch of benefits. One is the hosted element. So these, it's really a matter of just clicking a button to turn these on with a bit of configuration. And then the model is up and running behind the scenes without customers having to set up infrastructure, worry about the model. They have dedicated resources to that typically setting up your own model and managing it is not necessarily an easy task, especially when you think about wanting to scale that out. And so the model service and our hosted models with NVIDIA make that easier. We're optimizing performance not only with the dedicated NVIDIA hardware, but also configuration settings that we're setting up with them. And then also have the opportunity for customers to use built-in guardrail capabilities. So it's as simple as clicking a box, setting up the guardrails, deciding what you want those guardrails to be, what keywords you want to filter out, what kind of configuration you want to do. So it makes it very easy to add that extra layer of security. And then finally, as Couchbase, as I mentioned from the beginning, has been built as a platform with caching at its core, we built in a caching layer here that customers can easily turn on that allows them to do exact match caching and semantic level caching. So that way it means less calls to the LLM model, which makes your whole system performant, faster, and more efficient. So if I'm in a retail scenario, if I'm asking for, I would like to buy some brown shoes in leather that are size 10, and I get some results, and the next person comes in and says, I want size 10 shoes that are leather and brown, it's essentially the same question and should result in the same answer. And therefore, doesn't need to go to the LLM to generate that answer. It can be pulled from the semantic cache. And that can be easily just turned on with a single click in Couchbase. Okay, the next component I want to talk about is the data processing service and vectorization. So this is where we automate what customers can do in terms of bringing in PDFs and image files and so forth into their database for their application, for their agents. And currently today, this involves a lot of different steps and processes that can take weeks. So it's a complex process. Developers need to be involved. And it takes a lot of custom code and a lot of different tools that need to be managed, right? With our data processing service, Couchbase automates this process. So within the UI or within APIs, you can set up a process where you're defining, okay, here's my source location of my documents. This is kind of the strategy that I want to use. And from there, the documents are ingested, converted to JSON. The fields are vectorized, indexes are created, and then that is made available to the application. And as documents change, we're aware of those changes. As let's say more documents are added to the file, we automatically ingest those new documents and so on. So this whole automation process makes it a lot easier to bring in this unstructured data. And as an example, I was speaking with someone on our team yesterday. One of the leading conversational AI data platforms in the world is using us right now. They're enhancing their platform where they are taking their data and making it easier for end users to upload documents, have it converted to vectors, allow them to interact with those documents and so forth between their users. So this is happening today. Customers are rolling this out as we speak. And then the final component of that I want to elaborate on is the agent catalog. So if we think about building agents, each individual agent will have different tools and system prompts that they will be using to try and make decisions on what data I need to get, what I need to do, and so forth. And going from a simple, one agent system to a multi-agentic system means that you're going to have lots of different tools that are written that need version control. Lots the same with prompts. We need to make sure that those agents are having consistent behavior. So our tools hub and our prompt hub are designed to make it easy for developers to store information about the tools and prompts that the AI agents will be using as part of their thinking and their processing and their gathering of data and delivering results. And then the agent tracer is where we're storing all of those different steps that the agent is doing as it's going through the process and delivering results to the end user. And then within the Capella UI, we can store all that information, expose that information, make it easy for teams to look at that data. And if they're finding a result or something that they're unhappy with, they can go in and dig into those details very easily of, okay, what was the user asking? What were the tools used? What were the prompts used? What version was it? Do I need to roll things back, right? So to make this visual and make it easy to make sure that these applications, we've got governance over them, especially over time. So reusability of tools, making it easier for tools to be selected by agents. These tool definitions get vectorized within Couchbase. I forgot to mention that, but that makes it easier for tools to understand what is the agents to find the right tool that I need. Version control and traceability, right? So all very powerful in building these agentic systems, making them easier to build, easier to manage, and speeding up the entire process. And then finally, I talked a little bit at the beginning about how AI for developers has become one of the most common use cases in terms of developing code. And interacting with data is kind of the next big thing. Well, how do we make this easier for developers, especially within the enterprise environment where safety is required? Well, our AI functions are predefined within the Couchbase database that'll make it easy for organizations to just use SQL to call LLMs and interact with the data between the two of them. So you're improving your agent response, and that data can stay all within your environment without having to go across the internet. And so this is an example of some of the predefined data functions. So I can analyze the sentiment from, let's say, customer product descriptions or product reviews, or within my customer support tickets and so forth. Compare similarity of components, generating text, right? Translating text from one language to another, classifying content. Completion is it allowable to actually customize some different tasks within here, so you can actually go beyond what the specifics of the AI functions are and define some things yourself. And so what might these be used for, right? Localization of content, whether that be retail in a retail environment, or just kind of anything on your website or within your application that you want to customize to a local language, leveraging the power of your LLM and using a SQL call to do that. Improving customer support, improving the offers that an agent might offer to a customer. So understanding the background of that customer, and understanding maybe what products are available, and doing a quick review. Well, what do people say about this product? Is that aligned with what this person is asking for? And things like, let's say, in the healthcare industry, being able to take your data, mask the PII information to make it safe for use in sharing in other ways, right? So those are just a few examples of how AI functions might be leveraged within organizations and applications. So, and then finally, let's go on to deployment flexibility. So as I talked about earlier, the Couchbase database platform, right, simplified here, can be deployed by organizations both with our enterprise offering, which has been the original offering of Couchbase. Customers manage the application, whether they do this on-premise, or in the clouds or in the edge, however they want to deploy it, using Kubernetes and our offering there, or our Capella database as a service, which makes it easier and streamlined for customers to have the database and the platform hosted for them in the major public clouds. We're helping streamline the automation of the setup, the management, the scale out, and all of those different components within Capella as a choice. And then I talked earlier about our mobile platform. So what about mobile AI at the edge, right? So customers who are looking to improve field service workers or new kinds of use cases with mobile at the edge, our Couchbase Lite offering, which gets embedded within mobile applications, is AI ready, right? So, and works even offline. So customers could build applications with small language models and components like that in the application. And we can use our predictive query API to utilize small machine learning models to make predictions within the application. And Couchbase was the first to offer vector search within our Couchbase Lite or within any mobile database, making it easier to build similarity search or these RAG type applications at the edge, as well as things like hybrid search that I spoke about before. So those things can run all offline, no connectivity to the internet needed, or let's say there's just some breakage in networking connectivity or slowdowns. All this inferencing can be happening locally, which reduces your calls back to the cloud and to your LLM. So supporting that use case and those needs of our customers. So let me just wrap up here, and then I'll get into some kind of highlight a few other resources and then answer some questions. So what did I cover here? really the whole topic is about Couchbase for building trustworthy applications, agents, and Gen AI. So one challenge customers are facing, right? Fragmented data infrastructure in terms of cost, reliability, scalability, performance. Our unified data platform is there to help solve those challenges. Scalability, performance, specifically, millisecond speed at scale. I showed those benchmarks that were done by a third party. If you want some additional resources on that specific topic, there's another separate third party called BenchAnt. They do benchmarking, public benchmarking of, let's say, I think there's about 10 different databases, mostly NoSQL, some SQL that they benchmark. Couchbase holds 5 of the top 10 slots on the benchmark ranking, so you can check that out. Streamlining these complex AI workflows, bringing in unstructured data, managing all these processes and so on, making it easier to build agents, manage agents, and all of the kind of components and work around that, managing models, security, and so forth. Our integrated AI services is for that. Right? Deployment flexibility. Couchbase has been a very broad, flexible platform capable of going from on-premise to the cloud. You manage it. You want us to manage it. You want mobile. However you want to run it, we're here to support you for your needs. And then finally, kind of just sitting in this last point of applications, the trust, security, and cost of AI models. So for companies that want to utilize models within Couchbase that are hosted by NVIDIA, that we make it easy to set up, we make it easy to scale them, control your costs, have dedicated performant hardware associated with that. That's exactly what the hosted model service within Couchbase is all designed for. Okay, so we'll get close to wrapping up here. So what can you do next? If you want to learn specifically more about our AI services, here is the link to that area on the Couchbase website. This presentation is a PDF in the resources of this webinar, so you can access that and have all of these links. But I'd highly recommend checking out, there's like a 5-minute demonstration video that walks through all those different AI service components that I mentioned, so you can see it. You can see the user interface. You can learn more about each of those different services. If you want to learn more about our Capella database as a service, here's the link for that. There's videos there. We have a great data platform white paper towards the end of that page that talks all about, if you want to deep dive on Couchbase's unified data platform and all of the components therein. That I'd highly recommend that paper. If you want to connect with me after the webinar, I'd love that. Always open any connections and questions whenever. So there's my link for LinkedIn. If you want to reach out to our team more broadly, you can reach us at couchbase.contact. So I will leave this up and let's get into a couple of questions here. All righty. All right, Suzanne, so I'm going to start here. Let's see. One question I've got here is, if we want to use Bedrock, can we still use Couchbase and AI services? Absolutely, of course. We as Couchbase have had a long time partnership with AWS. In fact, when we launched our Couchbase Capella platform, it was the first platform we launched on. We have a very strong partnership with them. But AWS and Bedrock and deploying AI applications with Bedrock, they very much leave up the choice of the data layer to their customers. So if you're looking to build an application with the Bedrock models, but you need a data layer, instead of using 5 different tools, data tools, data layers, caching components from AWS, you might think of it instead of specific data services, you might think of the Couchbase unified platform as a smarter choice for doing that, as well as the fact that we have customers, I know, with our UK team, where AWS has a lot of customers using Bedrock, and they're approaching Couchbase and want to use us as a semantic caching layer because of our history in caching and the speed and the reduction in cost, the lower latencies they can get with that. So that's one component. Let me see here. We also have Richard from Phoenix. Hi, Richard. Just want to say hello. I'm in Phoenix as well, so nice to see another local. One question here I have is what do costs look like? So at a high level, right, obviously any system is going to be dependent on so many different factors. But we feel here at Couchbase that pricing shouldn't get in the way of innovation, right? We try and stay competitive with the industry. So for us, it's important that, we're giving a lot of information to our customers about pricing and clarity. So when you're in the Couchbase Capella UI, if you're looking at AI services and deciding you want to choose a particular model you want to deploy, you want to use the unstructured data service to bring in documents, all of the details are in there. So depending on the size of the clusters and so forth that you want to use. Also, Couchbase, when configuring and setting up these models, we're using Capella credits. So it's not like a separate business model outside of the Capella model. It's not tokens. We find that tokens have been, for customers, a lot more challenging to calculate and deal with. So we just could keep it consistent with the Capella credits. So it's similar to deploying the database and the database components that is consistent. The provision components make it very predictable in terms of deciding the model that you want to choose and the components and the cost thereof. And then usage components like bringing in documents are very straightforward in terms of pricing, and you can link it to, hey, I'm bringing in 10,000 documents or 100,000 documents. I can do the cost of that. That's actually quite low. And our price also includes support, which is something that a lot of customers or a lot of platforms aren't including, or they're not very clear on. So we don't want that ambiguity. So pricing is part of our support. But I do say if you have a project that you're interested in working with our AI services on, my suggestion is work with our team, contact us about a proof of concept. We'd be happy to engage with you and figure out, what's the right way to do that. So, okay. Let's see here. Okay. I think that's all we have for questions. So I think at this point, we'll wrap up. Suzanne, anything else you want to add?
No, thanks a lot, Tim. Appreciate the overview on everything. Super, super informative. Just a reminder that the resources, that an on-demand version of this webcast will be available tomorrow. You should get an email about that. So, please take a look at everything then. All of the docs that are on the screen here are also going to be in our docs section. So you'll have access to those again tomorrow with a copy of the recording. We'd love for you to send it on to a colleague who has the same kind of questions about where we're going next. And yeah, just want to thank Tim one more time and hope everybody has an awesome day.